This is part 3 of a series of videos that is being done regarding Canada's Department of Justice aids the CRA, which is the tax agency in Canada, to defraud 240 plus Canadians. This is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. This is a Good Samaritan video for the public's best interests and those of preserving justice. Anyone that has an issue with this, take it up with God. Help us get to 10,000 views and likes. Thumbs up for justice. Just select the like button down below this video and share with as many people as you can. Thanks to Glenn at Sovereign Living on YouTube for helping us get the word out. He dedicates his life to helping others find truth in law, and you can contact him and send donations to engineerwin@hotmail.com. Thanks again, Glenn. Are you aware now that the CRA is purposely delaying to hear any demerit cases in the courts? Some victims have been waiting 3 to 5 years to get into tax court to address these issues. This has been going on since 2012 now, actually. The delay tactics vary, with a few victims being denied motions to dismiss, and the CRA is still going after the victims. The CRA uses delay and aggressive tactics against self-litigants to overwhelm them, hoping they will give up. And most do, including sending reams of paperwork requiring short response times from a dozen or so agents to each victim, or as government now refers to, client. They attack with multiple agents from multiple offices against one citizen civilian taxpayer. Doesn't this sound like gangster-style intimidation? In their definitions and criminal code, this constitutes paper terrorism and organized crime. When they claim we are doing that, they believe it gives them an excuse not to give us remedy. They are required to bring the remedy. Self-litigants give up because of stress, lack of financial resources, which of course they clean out the bank account so it doesn't leave you with anything, threats by CRA, beaten down by CRA and DOJ, no assistance to understand the law or access to materials, and they get overwhelmed and end up in confusion. CRA and DOJ purposely confuse and bully victims so they aren't clear about their options or are denied remedies and due process. CRA still has liens on demerit victims' property despite being caught in this fraud. Many demerit victims have been forced into bankruptcy or bullied into paying this fictitious debt. Lawyers have told victims, don't even bother continuing, you're not going to win. Nice. After they've scammed victims for thousands of dollars as deposits. Dealing with the CRA is no different than a schoolyard bully who keeps changing the rules so they always win. Victims are entitled to a speedy trial with a right to proper due process. But if we go to federal court, the CRA will get caught and charged. Well, maybe. We'll see. Lots of victims are afraid of even more reprisals and afraid to come forward. Families are being torn apart by CRA tactics. One victim in the North Okanagan has been unable to work because CRA officers keep contacting his local community members, people he does business with, and bankers by closing every bank account he has access to. Sounds like malicious prosecution, doesn't it? CRA officers even posted notices in his community. Well, that's a privacy breach. Who is this guy? We want to know. Then they canvassed his neighborhood, threatening neighbors to tell them what they know. Doesn't that sound like what the Nazis did? So he can never work or earn a living. They even garnished his wife's paycheck so they had nothing to live on. Stop these tax terrorists. He can't afford insurance, rent, gas, etc. because they keep stalking him relentlessly. Stop these tax terrorists. And the government wants to give them more power to throw people in jail for not filing? Are they insane? Based on CRA officer behavior you've seen here, wouldn't that be equivalent to giving a 2-year-old a loaded gun? Definitely. Didn't CRA have several data breaches. How do they know the data they have is correct? A war crimes violation, I think this was mentioned earlier. Crimes against humanity means enslavement, imprisonment, torture, persecution, or any other inhumane act or omission that is committed. That means being forced out of your house and 100% garnishment, doesn't it? Against any civilian population or any identifiable group. Well, Demerit Consulting and Fiscal Arbitrators is an identifiable group, apparently in the CRA tax system. And that at the time and in the place of its commission constitutes a crime against humanity. Under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 1, all peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principle of mutual benefit in international law. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. Sounds like that's what's happening here. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 2, each state party to the present covenant undertakes to ensure that any person whose rights or freedoms are herein recognized are violated shall have an effective remedy, notwithstanding that the violation has been committed by persons acting in an official capacity. Well, it's the CRA. On behalf of the Crown, at least that's what they tell us. To ensure that any person claiming such a remedy shall have his right thereto determined by competent judicial, administrative, or legislative authorities, or by any other competent authority provided for by the legal system of the state, and to develop the possibilities of judicial remedy, to ensure that the competent authority shall enforce such remedies when granted. You can file a complaint to the White House here. Presidential actions, executive order blocking property, persons involved in serious human rights and abuse and corruption. Under the Vital Statistics Act of British Columbia, the state is defined as United States of America and District of Columbia. Filing a complaint. You can file a complaint anonymously, but it won't help your case. Again, I think this was covered in a previous video. If you state you are concerned about reprisal, ask for protection. Send a message to Justin Trudeau and his cabinet, end tax terrorism, stop CRA corruption, end CRA abuse, and hold these agents liable. Contact your PM and MLA, issue a service complaint to CRA, file privacy complaints for breaches. We require mandatory government action immediately, especially since this was done during the Pope's extraordinary Jubilee of Forgiveness. What do we demand from the government? All victims are restored to their original position prior to the fraud, all property and monies returned with damages non pro tongue. All liens removed, credit scores restored, permanent estoppel in writing against CRA for all victims. Like this video, share this video, and tell others. Continued in part 4 for more statutory breaches and criminal charges, and how the CRA uses the person. Please send donations to engineerwin@hotmail.com. Send Bitcoin by mail or PayPal. His Bitcoin code is there below. Thanks again, Glenn, for posting this video. And thank you for taking action. This is public notice.